Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sunday. It is the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. It's so nice to be with you today. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to look at the Gospel once again. Please join me. It's a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. When the Pharisees with some scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus, they observed that some of his disciples ate their meals with unclean, that is, unwashed hands. For the Pharisees, and in fact all Jews, do not eat without carefully washing their hands, keeping the tradition of the elders. And on coming from the marketplace, they do not eat without purifying themselves. And there are many other things they have traditionally observed. The purification of cups and jugs and kettles and beds. So the Pharisees and scribes questioned him. Why do your disciples not follow the tradition of the elders, but instead eat a meal with unclean hands? He responded, well did Isaiah prophesy about you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honors me with lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines human precepts. You disregard God's commandment, but cling to human tradition. He summoned the crowd again and said to them, hear me, all of you, and understand. Nothing that enters one from outside can defile that person, but the things that come out from within are what defiles. From within people, from their hearts, come evil thoughts, unchastity, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, licentiousness, envy, blasphemy, arrogance, folly. All these evils come from within, and they defile. Wow, it's much food for thought, isn't it? Again, Jesus drops the mic. Jesus allows us to just stop and think. When you think about these human traditions, and that's why, do you ever notice when I give these reflections and when I talk about sacred tradition, I make a distinction between capital T and small t? Do you notice that Jesus is talking about small t? I hope you know that, right? Okay. That he's talking about small t. Capital T is something very important, and it's part of the living faith. It's that apostolic tradition, capital T. The small customs, I guess you could call them customs, are small t's. These traditions. And Jesus is talking about how you're neglecting something much higher than a small tradition. So you're worried and fixated about scrupulously washing your hands and washing the kettles and the jugs and the beds. Notice he didn't say stop doing that. I mean, if you're going to do that, that's fine, but you're being nuts about it. I mean, the gospel doesn't say that. I'm saying that. You're being nuts about it. Stop it. You're missing the whole point. Like if you're going to do that, just wash your hands and wash whatever you need to wash, but they're not part and parcel to the important thing. So what they're doing and what Jesus is trying to say, you're equating this small t to the essential thing or to the Word of God. You're equating all these small traditions as if they have the importance and they're on the same level as the most heart of the scriptures. And he says to them, you're a hypocrite. Stop it with that. So at least he did not tell them to do away with it. At least he was saying, like, stop freaking out with all this stuff. Get a hold on yourself. You're fixating on something that is not necessarily the heart of what God intends or wants, because it's human tradition, small t. Not capital T, small t. Because there is a capital T, because I guess when we think of tradition, we think of like, it doesn't matter. Well, that's small t. But don't tell me that capital T is the same thing as small t, because it's not. It's absolutely not. So Jesus is saying it's from those things from within. It's not hands and the cups and the kettles and wah, 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 over and over and over and then do it again. Stop it. Meanwhile, everything that's in, that's where we get, I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap to make that clean. Do you see how that's where we get that, we Christianize that. So why don't you fixate yourself on that? So he says, this people honors me with lips, but their heart far from me. In vain do they worship me. Because this was they're kind of worshiping him. They're kind of that small t. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precepts as doctrines. Do you notice that? Teaching these human precepts as doctrines. No. You disregard God's commandments. But you cling on to these human traditions. How do we do that? How do people cling on to these small things and they don't observe really the law of God? The first thing that comes to my mind, you know what it is? It's going to get ashes. Mm-hmm. I have to get ashes. It's Ash Wednesday. I mean, no one's stopping Ash Wednesday and the reminder of ashes, right? It's a sacramental, it's a small s leading to the capital S. So is it sinful not to get ashes? No. I'm not telling you not to get ashes, but people can be fixated on that. People could be fixated on giving something up for Lent, but they're not fixated on stopping sin. Mm-hmm. So if you I'm going to give up chocolate, well, that's all about you, I think. It's more about your physical well-being. Chocolate's not going to help your soul, will it? Probably will help your waistline and your sugar levels, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that that's bad, so don't take me wrong. It's a good thing, but it doesn't go deeper than that. You want to give up something that goes past the body into the soul. But if you're just giving up chocolate because you want to lose 2 pounds during Lent and drop your sugar level, your blood level, your sugar blood count, well, then it's all about you. It's not about God. And so Jesus would have something to say about that. Right? He would have something to say about that. So we have to think about these things that he's speaking about in the gospel today. What other things do we do that we get fixated on, and yet we neglect the most important things? I think we could do, we could be fixated on, let's say, Christmas. I think it's a beautiful feast. It's the feast of our incarnation. But if it's celebrated incorrectly, it's really terrible. For instance, people just getting mad at each other because they didn't get the gift they wanted, or people getting upset with somebody because you didn't you didn't follow the tradition of mommy because she made this at Christmas, and now we're going to be all upset at you, and that's it. Meanwhile, no one's going to mass. No one's visiting the creche at church and kneeling down and asking God to continue to strengthen me. No one's going to confession in preparation for Christmas. But we can be fixated all about the meal, the presents, and all that. I think about this gospel. I think about this gospel. So Jesus said, your heart is far from me. Your heart is far from me. You're so fixated with all that stuff. Again, Jesus is not saying, I'm not saying not to do it, not to have a meal together with your family, not to exchange gifts, but you're fixated. You're fixated on all this, and you're neglecting the important part of Christmas. That happens. I'm telling you, that happens more than you think. People get upset with one another. Families fight because of simple things like gift giving, simple things as the meal. You know, my whole thing is, if you are all stressed out, then don't cook the meal. We're gonna go and get some lunch meat sandwiches, and we're gonna have a couple sandwiches, and we're going to sit down at the table and just talk and laugh. That's all. Now, I know for some people that would be like, oh my gosh. Yeah, not for me. Now, you may be surprised at that. You may be surprised and say, Father, really? Well, yeah, because I don't want that drama. I don't want the drama. If you are like, can't do it anymore, if you are so spent that you can't do this anymore, and it's only making you perturbed, aggravated, upset, don't do it. Let's just meet. Let's just open the chips. Let's have some sandwiches. Let's just have some good drink, and maybe somebody could pick up a dessert, and let's just sit, talk, laugh, pray, and enjoy the celebration of Christ's birth. Makes me happy. Makes me happy. Now, there are people that want the whole 9 yards. Like in my family was lasagna for Christmas Day. We had the fishes for Christmas Eve, but we had lasagna on Christmas Day. Now, my mom did that little by little as leading up to it. We all loved it. Sure, there was people that helped and all that. Many hands make light works. But what I'm telling you is, I hope we're not ruining the reason why we're gathering. So if nobody wants to help, and that burden is on one person, and that person says, you know, I can't do it this year. You know, just can't do it. I just can't do it. It's okay if we have something simple. Now, if everybody freaks out and says, no, we can't stop, we can't do that, we have to, what are you talking about, lunch meat sandwiches? That's ridiculous. Okay. Well, who's going to do it? Are you going to do this part, and who's going to do that part? And who's going to, because everybody says at that point, you should have told me, I would have helped. Everyone says that. Mm-hmm. So now we have to think about these things, okay? So when I think of this gospel, you know, your little traditions at home, usually mom gets stuck with a lot of that. She keeps it together. And God bless moms. I really mean that. They do things that we don't even know about. And it all happens. But we have to help. We have to help. You know, when mom asks us to do something, it's only one piece of the bigger puzzle. If we want to keep this tradition, as long as we don't lose sight of the bigger picture. This is what Jesus is talking about today. This is what he's talking about. You're all losing sight of the major picture. So you're washing kettles, jugs, and beds, and you're scrupulously washing your hands. All good things, right? We do that today. But they made it part and parcel to the act of worship of God. You know what I mean? We don't. We separate the two. Even when the priest washes the chalice, the cup, like we make sure it's all clean, right? But it's prepared for the next Mass so that we can begin the next Mass with everything done, that it's not the center of the sacrifice. Do you see the whole meaning of what Christ is trying to say? So you're saying all this stuff is important, and I'm saying to you, this is Jesus speaking, no. From within people, from their hearts come evil thoughts and unchastity and theft and murder and adultery and greed and malice and deceit and licentiousness and envy and blasphemy and arrogance and folly. All of those things should be washed scrupulously out. And you're worried about this? No. So, you want to celebrate Christmas? Go to confession. Wash that stuff out. Wrap your soul with a beautiful bow. Let God do all that. Present yourself. So we have to be very careful that we're not losing the point. We're not losing the meaning and the heart of what God calls us to. Because it is very easy to lose what is essential. What is essential? Now, you may think, oh yeah, Jesus was absolutely right. Okay. Well, number one, you and I were not living back then. Because I always like, these Monday morning quarterbacks. They think and they act, but they have to be at that place and that situation. In other words, I want you to put yourself in biblical times. And I want you to understand, according to Mosaic law, what all that meant. This was part of their religion. So if it was part of their religion, they were serious about it. So you can't say, oh, Jesus was right, that's ridiculous. No, don't say that, because this was part of their religion. But Jesus is really bringing them to a different level. And you know what happens with change? It's not easy. Do you like to change? Seriously, do you like to change? No, you don't. No one likes to change. Once you're in your habit of doing that, you don't like to change. People sit in the same pew, they don't like to change. And that's sitting in the same pew. Could you imagine other things like this that are part of the Mosaic law? Come on. Well, Jesus was saying, you hypocrites. You hypocrites. You could imagine some of them were like, what? What are you saying? How dare you say that about us? What would you say? Honestly. And yet he said that. And he says, you know what is really dirty? Is within. Already in there, coming out. See, the things outside are dirty, but you and I have a door to our lips and our soul, not permitting them in. What comes out comes out with force, coming out from our very being. They have already settled in. All of these vices Jesus speaks about, all of these evils he talks about, they come from within and they defile a person. This is not going to defile you, but something within coming out, it'll defile, not the opposite. So they had to stop and they had to think about that. They had to think about that. And so do we. And that's what Jesus speaks about us. So that's why I want you to look at all the small T's in your life. Jesus is not saying get rid of them. We like small T's. A lot of people like tradition. But not to lose the bigger picture, though. Not to lose the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the most essential thing. Especially when it comes to holiness. It's those things are not going to make us holy. Wearing a miraculous medal, wearing a cross, putting ashes on your forehead, having fishes for the Christmas Eve, that's not going to make you holy. But what's going to make you holy is to expel all the evil within your heart. You know that you're not talking to your sister and not inviting her to Christmas Eve dinner? That's evil. You ignoring your brother? That's evil. You cheating on your spouse? That's evil. So let's not worry about like who has the best present, who has the best tree, who has the more decorations, who has the best Christmas Eve dinner. That's not going to get you to heaven. I give out chocolate for Lent. That's not going to get you to heaven. All these other things that are from within that we have to expel, that's what needs to be done. And that's what Jesus talks about in this gospel on the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. God bless you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. And remember, what is the most important thing that God wants you to work on in your worship? Worship Him. Receive Him in communion. Go to Mass. And be at peace, not only with the person sitting next to you, but be at peace with God, be at peace with yourself, and be at peace with all those people that God has put into your life. Have a nice day, everybody.